My name is Julius Adeoye. I'm an engineer, and at the same time, I do little business. I've been married for 25 years, and I have 3 children. My children are here. My wife is here as well. Mrs. Adeoye, she's seated. Thank you very much. I want to say a big thank you to the organizers of Parenting Summit Africa. I want to say thank you so much for inviting me and giving us the platform to share a little of what I've gained, in raising up my children over the last couple of years. I don't take it lightly. Special thanks to Dr. Vivian Okoye and her very impressive team. They've done a yeoman's job in putting this together. A round of applause for them once again, please. Thank you very much. Without wasting so much time, I will want to quickly go to what we have today. I will start by saying something. I will just make a small quote. And a few of what I will say, I will mention a little bit of the things I have seen over the years and all that. One thing I know, the quote I was going to talk about is a quote by Frederick Douglass. He says, "It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men." It is easier to raise strong children than to repair broken men. Now, in this discussion, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that he mentioned about. But a rule of the thumb is that there are no 2 children that are the same. You find out that no 2 children are exactly the same. The principle you use for one child will definitely be different for, even when they are from the same parent, even when they are twins, even when they are identical twins. Incidentally, the first 2 of my children, they are twins, a boy and a girl. But you find out that these are 2 entirely different people. Even raising them, we didn't even try to make them maybe the same, So this thing, we should take cognizance of that. Is very important. And at the same time, there are some of the principles that we're going to share here that. But one thing I will say about some of these principles is this: irrespective of the generation, whether you say Gen Z, Gen Alpha, millennials, and whatever, there are certain principles that will run through every generation. Some of those principles are some of the things I want to point out here. And of course, a whole lot of other studies have been done about this. Now, the question I want to ask is this: who is a 21st century child? Of course, there is a whole lot of definition of how to describe who a 21st century child is. But for the purpose of just simplicity, they range between 0 and about 25, 30 years. That is possible. That is basically the way I want to define who a 21st century child is. And there are certain things that are peculiar to them. You find out that, I'll just read through some of them. I don't want to waste time on some of these things so that we'll have time to go through some of the things I'm going to talk about. The 21st century child doesn't want to think in a box. Their ideas run wild, and they love their own independence. They love to be independent. Now, they may not be your typical homework / extra classes type, but they love to learn. They learn by playing. They love to learn by playing. I'm looking at probably the ones that are much younger and all that. Now, I remember when my children were small, when they were in primary school, the proprietress of their school that time, she insisted and said, "Look, by 2 o'clock you must come and pick your children." Some of us were like, "Oh no, they should stay away," and all that. And it was all because of selfish reasons. We will still be at work by 5, 6, 7 and all that. She said, "No, if you don't come and pick your child by 2 o'clock, there are penalties." And she told and said, "Look, for them at that particular point in time, they really needed to rest. Their attention span is very small. So there's no need exposing them to so many extra lessons and extra coaching after school and all that." So that was one of the things that she did, and it helped my children, and they grew up to just be fine. Now, their concept of work is different from ours. And a typical 21st century child may not easily conform to the typical education work environment. These days, you find out that the young ones, they work at home, they do a whole lot of things. They reach out to people all over the world, right from where they are. Incidentally, my children, they are graduates, they are working on their own, but they do a whole lot of things, working at home and reaching places where most of us cannot even begin to imagine, you know. And, and another thing is that they are, of course, just like I said, reaching out to the world. That means they are really tech savvy. The day of the internet and all that really helps them and all that. So those are some of the little things I would say about the 21st century child. Then I want to go straight to the main things I want to emphasize on in this discourse. I just broke them down into some little points. I will list them before I will speak a little bit about them, so that you will kind of flow with me. One, I said good parenting is deliberate. Two, focus on individual strength, tap into the adventurous part. Three, the role of chores, household chores in child development. Then, of course, the aspect of our good values as Nigerians and Africans. And we'll talk a little bit about the valuable lessons of money and financial management. So, in going into it, I want to say something about the fact that parenting is a deliberate thing. The reality of life is this. Just like we know that, if I say by show of hands, most of us here are parents. If I want to ask that, okay, how many of us will want to agree with me that parenting is not an easy job? Of course, a whole lot of us will raise up their hands. The reality of it is that truly, parenting and raising children is not an easy job by any stretch of imagination. It's just like, for me, it's like running a marathon race. It is not a 100-meter dash. You don't get there overnight. It takes time. In some cases, it takes years. Incidentally, I've been able to participate I do a bit of running and all that. I've been able to participate in marathon. I did the London Marathon in 2017. Before I went on to do the marathon, I knew I was going to do the marathon, run marathon in 2016. I had clear 1 year. But the actual practice and training training took me about 6 months. There are days where you run fast, there are days you train slow, there are days you rest, so in other words, it was a mixture of so many things that we needed to do, But at the end of the day, the goal was just to run that 42 kilometers. In the process, of course, I was able to go through it, having gone through the thing. The same thing is what we extrapolate now into parenting. It's not an easy thing, but with a lot of dedication, determination, and that readiness to make sure that you bring out the best in your child. It's just like that. There's a particular feeling you get, despite all the stress and the rigors. There's a feeling you get at the finishing line when you know that you have completed the race. The same thing is what you get when you start seeing your children in front of you, and you can proudly say, I thank God I've done a good job on these children. So these are some of the things that has helped me. Over the years, we learned to focus on the strength of our children. You have a whole lot of children, different characters, different behavior, different personalities and all that. Just like I said, we had twins and all that, but our children were very, very active, to the point of saying they were really hyperactive as children. But there are ways we had to now channel their strength, to some of the right things and all that. I remember years ago when, they would come to my office, they want to just start jumping all over the place. I get papers for them and say, okay, Joshua, Esther, come, these are papers, start drawing, or start doing something. So they will fill papers with all sorts of drawings and all that. You say that I want more papers. I want more papers and all that, And those things, you find out that at the end of the day, they were able to express themselves. We created that kind of environment for them to be able to channel their energy and bring out the best in what they did. Having done having done this, you find out that there are certain things that it's like, I'll call it, is almost getting to like a lost art. This next point, the role of chores in child development. I would like to dwell a little bit more on this particular topic, the role of chores in child development. Now, you find out that these days, a whole lot of parents just don't bother about allowing their children to do things. They say, oh, they have a lot of homework to do, they have a lot of this, they have a lot of that. So they make excuses, and you find out that the children end up not doing anything to help anybody around. What I found out for me personally is that growing up and in my growing up years and all that, of course, many of us that I would know, we definitely have gone through this kind of situation where your parents insist that you do certain things in the home. Oh, go and sweep the floor, go and tidy your room, tidy your bed, get things done and all that. A whole lot of all of these things, most of us grew up with that. But you find out that this is a lost art, more or less, among the people, and it's all over the world. Incidentally, there was a study, a longitudinal study that was done in Harvard. It has spanned for like 75 years. They call it Harvard Grant Study. And that study, among some of the things, the study is about this. They got a group of like about almost 700 participants over a period of years of their lives. It started around 1941. So they got people that were willing to participate over time, 41, 42, 43, like that. And they studied them when they were young men, adults, all of them, male, adults, and all that. Young men, from the time they got married, had children, started raising their children, and got married, got a job, and so many other things that they did and all that. So they studied their life. Every 2 years, they would come over and give them questionnaires to just get feedback on what has been happening in their lives over the years. Of course, there was a whole lot of things that came in the report and that they were able to get. Of all of the things they got, they were one of the things that stood out was the fact that there was a direct relationship between the role of those of them that did chores at home when they were small and how they turned out over the years. A whole lot of them turned out to be best in what they did. They earned more, they did well, they were more stable over the time and all that. By the time they had fantastic professional success over years. And this study, for different other universities, they did the same thing, Minnesota University did similar studies like that. And they found out that when children do chores, it's not because you are training them to be slaves. You are not training them to be houseboys and house girls. No. In the process of helping out, a whole lot of things come up. The children will become more responsible. Now, they have idea of time and time management. Because, okay, I know I have to do my homework. And mommy has told me to do this. At the same time, I have to do X, Y, Z and all that. In the process, they will have to now start learning how to plan. Of course, you don't start that from when they are 16, 17. The best time to start is about maybe 2, 3. They want to help out to just, most of us will relate to this. When children are about 3, 4, and you are in the kitchen, you are doing the dishes and all that, they are always eager to come forward and help out, to wash plates and all that. In some cases, no, don't worry, you won't do it nicely. No, don't worry. No. Those were the times we decided for our children. We decided to say, okay, let them do the little they can do. So at that time, they enjoy doing it. What the parents need to do at that time was just for us to just reinforce that action. Just encourage them. So by the time they do it 3, 4, 5, 6, then they want to start backing out. No, you now put a little bit more insistence on it that, look, you do it. But over time, they don't now no longer see it as work. They now start to enjoy it. So these are some of the things that were found out that has helped us, for our children. And one thing I found, I knew, I remember when I was growing up, Saturdays was when every work in the house would be done. And I used to hate Saturday mornings. Oh my goodness. I don't know how many of us, I hated Saturday mornings. The fact that you have to do work at home and incidentally breakfast, some these days now they'll say, oh, you eat breakfast before. No, we will not eat breakfast before you do the morning duties on Saturdays. The breakfast will now be after all things has been done. So the earlier you did your homework, the earlier you get your breakfast. And before you know what was happening there, 10, nothing. I was like, oh God, what kind of house is this? I hated my mom then. I was like, oh God, what kind of mom do I, why am I in this house? But you find out that for us, we didn't know. Over the years, that thing helped me a lot. There were places I got to, it was not difficult for me to quickly fit in, because anywhere I got to, I used to tell my friends, I said, look, I only need to get to a new place. Within 3 to 5 days, I'll know where the market was. I will know where they buy pots and stoves and things, and I'm good to go. Then of course there were so many experiences I can easily draw from. One that readily comes to mind was when I was in Ibadan. One of my pastors, and he used to tell us about this when he was small. He was from a very privileged background, very privileged. His parents sent him as a young boy, sent him to England to go and school. So it wasn't as if they didn't have money. But the mom insisted that he went through public transport. His mom insisted that he ground pepper with his hand. His mom insisted that he did things like any other child, just like any other house helper. The house helper working, the young man was doing his work. But you now found out that the same guy said when he went to England, he was just about 16, 17, 18, like that. He said he was all alone in England. He said his parents would give him his school fees ahead of time. He could do anything he wanted to do with it. He said, well, because of the kind of training he had, he decided that, no, I'm not going to join any of this gang. Of course, he saw most of his cousins that were all from well-to-do families and all that. It didn't take too long because most of them went into drugs. But at the end of the day, he finished and graduated from the Imperial College, and he attributed some of these things to the kind of background that he had, So for us as parents of a 21st century child, like one lady, her name is Julie Lithcott. She wrote a book and called it Raising Adults. So as far as we're concerned, we're no longer, let's not look at it that we're just raising children, 21st century children. We're raising adults. We're raising people that will end up to become world changers. But the world out there does not make it easy for anybody. Like they used to say in the secular world, they say it's a dog-eat-dog world out there. So in other words, nobody is waiting for you to just be soft. You have to be hard. But being hard, it's not just by just wishing it away. So let us raise children that will think from that point of view. Let us start thinking about how that one will help us. Another thing that comes to my mind, I remember that there was a time I was talking with my brother-in-law, one of my brothers-in-law, and he was talking about growing up, how when they were small, the parents will send, of course their parents were doing well, they were a middle class family, But as at that time, when they were small, the father had a farm. So he would send them to go to farm. They would go and they were like, what kind of thing is this? Why do I have to always go to farm? When it was time for this thing, the boys actually walked in the kitchen. They pound yams. I'm sure that some of these things to a typical new generation parent will be like, that is strange. What is the meaning of that? No. It's not because he was raising his children to work in restaurant. He was not raising them to be chef. In fact, the guy was at a particular time, he became, he was in medical school, and he was doing all of these things. But when the time came, he went over to the US, and he now had to cope with the rigors of settling down in the United States as an immigrant. Nobody was going to hand anything over to you on a platter of gold. So over there, you now found out that he now had to learn how to cope with the daily activities of the day. He had to do his exam. He had to, at the same time, prepare to maybe what? He has already graduated as a medical doctor here. But he had to do the exams. But at the same time, he had to work so that he can have money to raise himself and all that. He said by the time he was doing like 3, 4, 5 jobs, some of his friends would come to meet him and say, oh boy, what happened now? You just work anyhow like this and everything. Can't you rest? He said, look, I didn't come to America to come and rest. If I want to sleep, my bed is in Elisha. And the reality of it is this. Today, he has his own medical practice in the US. It's not that he's working for anybody. He has people working for him. He's paying salaries of an Oyibo man, And there was a time when we had the opportunity of sitting down with him, with my children and all that, and they were talking. And I was so happy he was saying it in their presence because they learned a lot from talking with him. He said those things really helped him to become who he is. Today, he's a very, very successful guy, And those are some of the things that I found out that, has worked. And the whole world is saying the same thing about it. The role of allowing your children to do chores. Many of us will just not like, why will I have to? They will have house helps and all that. No. Because the reality of it is this. Just like I said earlier on, we are not raising them to just be house help. No. But there are certain things. There is a way the brain is wired. There's a way the brain is wired to help the children to cope with pressures. Okay, I've entered the kitchen. There are plates all over the whole place. So what do I do? Okay, let me first arrange this one this way, arrange that one that way. As a child, if you are thinking that way, your brain muscles will start adapting to that thing, that problem-solving ability. Your brain will start adapting to it. That one happens. Another thing is that you are solving problems. Another thing is that let us assume that, okay, a mom and a little daughter, they are just washing plates and just doing things and all that. In the process, a conversation will start, especially when you have a typical five-year-old girl or 5-year-old boy. Mommy, why is the soap always foaming? Why is this that like that? Why is that like that? Before you know what's happening, the children are learning, aside from the fact that they are reinforcing themselves. And at the same time, a bonding is happening between the mother and the child because they spend more time together. Then another thing is that the child learns to make sure that, realizes the fact that, I'm in a community. I'm doing this thing for the general good of everybody. Now, when they now grow up and they go out in the world, you find out that they fit well into the society. So, these things are quite important that we should not let go of it. While we're trying to raise a 21st century child, it is not a bread and butter affair, but at the same time, it comes with a whole lot of determination, and we shouldn't think, just like somebody said before the thing started, shut out the society, forget about what the society says is the norm today. We have house help truly, but at the same time, my children, even though they are much older now, they are adults and all that, but right through when they were growing up, at different times we had house helps that would do some of the things, listed things. But that did not stop our children from doing the real household. Even up till now, they do things in the house. At 5 o'clock, my daughter wakes up in the morning. She's 24 now. She wakes up in the morning, 5 o'clock, she's ready. She does her morning devotion. The next thing, you find out that she just goes straight into the kitchen, prepares breakfast. Before you know it, she gets ready and all that. In some cases, she even will do some little exercise. Then, by 7 o'clock, she's out the door. She's going to work. Now, when she comes back from work, she participates in church activities. So that time she goes to church. But at the other days, she's a fashion designer at the same time. And at the same time, you find out that she will just come out and she will just be doing, when she comes back home, she finds time and do her fashion work and all that, and do all of that, so that she doesn't disappoint her clients. She's able to combine all these kind of things just because of the kind of background she has had over the years. These are some of the things that I can directly relate to, that I know that it works. It has worked for me. It can work for any of the parents who decide to toe this line. Now, another thing I would probably want to say quickly, without wasting too much of our time, is you know, we should not let go of the values that we hold as Africans. You know, I want to talk about that because a whole lot of things are been happening in this time. People don't the value of respect, for instance, and discipline, and honor. You know, like I'm just mentioned about doing chores. People don't even bother about all those things again and all that. You find that an adult is standing, a child will just walk past. A young boy, small boy will just walk past, not even acknowledge the presence of that person, talk less of even saying greeting. You know, these are simple values that we hold so dearly as Africans that we should not let go of. One example that comes to my mind real easily is the case of one of my brothers-in-laws when he was much younger. I was just talking with my wife yesterday, and he was relating this. He said he just came home and found out that some adults were just sitting there in the sitting room. And he just prostrated. Of course, you know, in Southwest, prostrating is a big thing. So he just prostrated and greeted the man. And the man said, wow, so you mean university students still greet people today? You know? And the man, so he just laughed and greeted the man very well and left. He said, so where are you? He said, he's in University of so. Okay, no problem. You're studying. What course are you studying? He said, it's surveying. Okay, no problem. So as he entered the room, the father and the man that was talking, incidentally, that man was the VC of that same university. True story. The VC of the university. And they were now saying, incidentally, he wants to change course. He's in first year. He wants to change course to architecture. And, they place embargo on changing courses. So it's difficult for him to change course. He said, if it's for embargo, because of him, we will lift the embargo. Because of him, we lift the embargo. Now, what am I trying to bring out? Something as simple as greeting. Respect. You saw people sitting down. You greeted them. Respect. It can open doors for you. So that is something those are some of the values that we should hold dearly. We should not allow any culture, whether foreign. You know, most of us adapt Western ways and all that. But when you go over there, you find out that they themselves, they pay a lot of premium. They put a lot of premium on respect. So we should not let go of that part of what makes us us. You know, because for us, we really believe so much in it. We are very, very big on respect and all that. You know, and these are things that over the years, it's not just about the greeting. It's about the mentality that, look, this is a human being, I cannot just pass. And I used to tell my children, even when they were growing up, I said, look, even when you see a mechanic to come and greet me, or a carpenter has come to greet me, you must come and greet those people too. Don't just think that they are not anybody. And I found out that, incidentally, this is true life. My mechanic, he had gone around the whole of his workshop telling everybody about my children. So that people will walk up to me and say, Oga, thank you very much. Oh, I like those your children. I like them. I said, how do you know that? He said, Mr. Lekon has told us about your children. You know, something as simple as that opens door for you. You know, I don't know how am I doing with time and all that. I don't want to waste everybody's time and all that. You know, there's the other one I'll just run through it. I will not waste too much of our time and all that. There are valuable lessons that we need to teach children about financial management and all that. You know, so please let us put all of those things into consideration. But I'll run down through this one. I'm not going to take too much time on this one again. What do we now need to do? What we need to do is just simple. Accept you need to improve, even if we have difficulties in making some of these decisions. You may have difficulties, but just make up your mind and all that. Then at the same time, you can seek professional counseling from people. There are so many experienced people. That's why the Parenting Academy is there. You can seek professional counseling, professional help. They will be willing to do it, just like Dr. Okoye has already mentioned. And you can go through it many times over and do that. One thing we should be aware of is that we are human beings. Our children are human beings. They will be bound to make mistakes. You will make mistakes in the process of raising your children. But remember something, no matter how the situation is, let your children know that whatever failure they have, whatever mistakes they will always have a good home to come back to meet you. Thank you very much for your time.